I've called this disclosure of UAP technology transfer, and it's part of our disclosure series that we've been doing since the summer of last year. So this has been going on for a while. And this one is about a progression that, in my opinion, is the most important one that's happened of all of them. So all of them are, in their own way, very important, but this one is even more important. UAP is the new term that's used for UFOs, what used to be the UFOs, which is unidentified aerial phenomenon or phenomena. And technology transfer is a term that's used in the industry for taking technology from one place and transferring it somewhere else. So altogether, disclosure of unidentified aerial phenomenon technology transfer. And this was obviously released, or we found out about this just recently. So that's what we're all about today. I just want to give you a reminder of who I am, and I also wanted to remind you about CAF Ministries. CAF is a nonprofit which is based in Texas, and CAF has sponsored books and a number of other things that we do in our ministry. I am a Bible interpreter, but my primary background is I have a PhD in engineering from Imperial College. Imperial College is the #1 engineering school in Europe, at least it was when I was there. And my particular background is in an area called fluid mechanics. I've worked in industry for many, many years. I'm not actively working in industry now, but my focus is I teach Old and New Testament classes and Bible interpretation. So this is not, shall we say, the primary thing that I do or I have done, but what I've been able to do in my Bible interpretation is to combine my understanding of engineering and advanced physics principles with the interpretation of the Bible, which I find very helpful. If you want to contact us, we have our contact information at the bottom. If you go to YouTube and you want to follow our channels and the other videos, it's under CAF Ministries. That's spelled K-A-P-H Ministries, and we invite you to do that. And of course, the other videos in the series, along with this one, you can find them if you go there. Okay, let's look at the timeline of where we have been so far with the presentations that we've done in order for you to understand how we're getting to where we are. And the first thing is, in 2017 through 2019, there was a physicist, an applied physicist, I'll call him. His name is Salvatore Pais, and he's filed a number of patents with the U.S. Patent Office on behalf of the United States Navy. The interesting thing about these patents are not only the incredible physics that is beyond anything that we currently are publicly aware of, but not only that, but the patents were available for general inspection. So you can actually go to the U.S. Patent website, and you can type in Salvatore Pais or Salvatore Cesar Pais, and you can look at all these patents yourself. So that in itself is quite remarkable. A lot of the technologies that are described and discussed are outlined in the scientific paper that Pais presented, called Conditional Possibility of Spacecraft Propulsion at Superluminal Speeds. And superluminal means faster than the speed of light. So these revelations, shall we say, through these patents are quite amazing all by themselves. On April 27th, the United States Navy confirmed videos that had been shot from F-18 cameras and other sensors of unusual craft movements, and we did a video on that. The fact that there was what appeared to be a UAP or UFO flying, doing incredible maneuvers, is in itself not the important thing from the perspective of disclosure. What's important is the U.S. Navy acknowledged that these videos were real, and they acknowledged that the videos had been released by them. So once again, a very important step on disclosure, which was done April 27th, 2020. Today's presentation, or I should say this evening's presentation, is based on another revelation that came out through the New York Times, and that was a confirmation on July the 24th of last year that the Pentagon had recovered off-world vehicles, quote, not made on this earth. Now, once again, that is amazing. This came out of a Senate investigation that was headed up through a Senate Security and Intelligence Committee headed up by Senator Mark Rubio from Florida. And it's the idea is to identify any threats coming from off-world or wherever they might come from. And one of the people that appeared to testify confirmed that the vehicles that had been recovered were not made on this earth. Now, of course, some people might say, well, how do they know this was not made on this earth? And I think the comment at the time was, let's just wait and see. And of course, that's what we're going to see today is we're progressing down that path. It's obviously part of this whole disclosure process. On December the 7th, the Haim Ashed, who is a senior military official, he's currently a professor at an aerospace institute in Israel, confirmed a number of different things of Israel's involvement with extraterrestrials or non-Earth beings. And he referred to an entity that the United States and Israel deals with called a galactic federation. This, of course, implies that not only are there extraterrestrial beings, but there is a galactic federation, which is some form of organization that would be similar in some fashion to our United Nations. So this is the timeline that we're working on, and we're obviously going towards something. And that's what we're going to discuss today. Our focus is going to be on the July 24th, which is this recovery of off-world vehicle that was discussed in this Senate hearing. This is Nick Pope. He is a former British government official with the Ministry of Defense. He's a very well-known figure in the ufology community, and his responsibility when he was with the British Ministry of Defense was to investigate the UFO phenomenon. He worked as a civil servant in the Ministry of Defense from 1985 to 2006. And later on, he came to work in what came to be known as the UFO desk, where his duties included investigating reports of UFO sightings to see if it had any defense significance. He, at the time, while he was with the Ministry of Defense, he said that he remained open-minded about the existence, but obviously of UFOs and extraterrestrial life forms. But obviously he can't talk about it, and he had to, do whatever the government told him at the time. And so he said, well, there's probably conventional descriptions of or explanations for what these things are, but that's obviously what he had to say at the time. But what he is now is he is a very prominent person in the ufology community, and he's obviously very much an advocate of this idea of the potential for extraterrestrial life. Nevertheless, in 2009, the Ministry of Defense announced that UFO sightings would no longer be investigated. And so it was sort of like a closed book or something. But he obviously is very actively involved. And like I said, if you're in the ufology community, he's a very familiar person to see. The reason I wanted to include Nick, in this discussion is one of the things that I got from feedback from the previous videos that, of course, I'm aware of, is that there is a certain thought that is out there, which is understandable as you're going through this disclosure and this discovery process, is maybe missing perhaps the picture of really where we're going with all of this. And I think some of the comments that Nick Pope gave recently in January of this year in a webcast that he did with Hannibal TV is a good way to sort of think about it. And I thought his comments were particularly of interest. He says when these sorts of people, whether it's a CIA director, in this case John Brennan, a professor at Harvard, which is Avi Loeb, whether it's a Canadian defense minister, which was Paul Hellyer, whether it's a co-founder of Israel's space program, that would be Haim Eshed, when those sorts of people at those sorts of levels with those sorts of backgrounds start saying this, I think the world should be sitting up and paying more attention. The good news is I think they are. And to the right, you see Luis Elizondo, who ran the UAP investigation program for the naval intelligence. So all of these people are saying there is something to this and there is something going on. It's not that one of them says it. It's not that someone says something that's more important than someone else. There's an aggregate of very qualified senior people in aerospace or in government positions who are publicly coming out and telling you this is what it is. So what I'm trying to say is this disclosure is inevitable. There is no way it's not going to happen. So it's important for us to organize our thinking about our life and how we live it based around this inevitability. So why would that be? And this is the reason, this is the thing that I really, really tonight wanted to get across to you. Politics, science, religion, technology, economics, military, philosophies, everything will be altered by the knowledge that we're not alone in the universe. That is the thing that I would like you to understand this evening as we go through this discussion about disclosure. Everything that you know about is going to change once this occurs. It's not going to be one little thing. It's not going to be, gee, our technology will change because, we'll have this or we'll know about that. No, everything's going to change. The world will be completely different when this occurs. So this is the reason why I and CAF Ministries are spending our time doing this, because obviously CAF Ministries is a teaching and a Bible interpretation, but the biblical understanding and the understanding of God, Yahweh for us, and how the universe works, it's all going to change when there is a public understanding of the intelligent life that is not Earth origin. That's going to happen. It's undoubtedly going to happen very, very soon. So I realize there's lots of things going on in the world, but we need to be aware that this is the number one thing in our generation, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because once it occurs, you're going to see it. Everything's going to change instantly. And then it's going to be like the previous world we lived in never even happened. It's going to be that dramatic. So that's my little sermon on that. Okay, there was a very interesting article that came out in the UK Sun of all places, and it was not picked up by very many, if at all, other media sources, and it came out in early February. And what it talked about was the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, responded to a researcher whose name is Anthony Bragaglia. I believe that's misspelled. I thought I got a picture of Anthony. I'm not sure, so I put a little question mark over his face. I think this is Anthony, but I'm really not sure. So if Anthony, if you're out there and you can let us know what the picture looks like, then maybe you could post it on our Facebook, on our YouTube channel. So what he says is that from his investigations and what he got back from the Defense Intelligence Agency is that there was debris that has been recovered by the Department of Defense that had either come as residue, flotsam, or shot off material or crashed material from UAPs, that's unidentified aerial phenomenon, or unidentified flying objects. So that's quite a claim, and this just came out very, very recently. So what this is saying is that the Defense Intelligence Agency of the United States is admitting that they have recovered this material and that they've been doing stuff with it, which is exactly what we were talking about earlier in this presentation. Okay, so let's investigate this a little further. This is Simon Parkes, who, for those who are familiar with Simon's work and his website at simonparkes.org, is a person who has been very active in the disclosure, and he also has comments on this as well. And here's what he says: the government in America actually admitting for the first time that they have inspected unidentified flying objects, alien vehicles. When the American government says we have been inspecting, we call it back engineering, alien spacecraft, that should not just be on the front page of every newspaper. It should be on the front, second, third, fourth, fifth. And they should be interviewing people, but you know what? They're not. So the UK Sun is the only one that picked up this story, but that tells you something obviously about the rate of censorship and other things that's going on in America and other countries around the world in the times that we're living in. Okay, here is the actual letter, a copy of the letter that was received by Anthony Bragaglia from the Defense Intelligence Agency, dated January the 8th of 2021 this year. And I've highlighted two parts to this so that you can look at what the response was. The first is in green, and it says, this responds to your FOIA, your Freedom of Information Act request, dated December the 27th, 2017. So this was over 3 years before, and he finally got a response. In the text is what you should know about. They gave him documents which were test results from the UAP material from Bigelow Aerospace. Now, that in itself should be absolutely shocking to us, folks. Okay, the Defense Intelligence Agency is telling you that these documents that are being sent to Anthony Bragaglia come from unidentified aerial phenomenon that were given to Bigelow Aerospace. Now, obviously, we are going to find out who Bigelow Aerospace is, but I just want you to just let that sink in for just a minute. They are admitting that they have crashed UFO or UAP materials, that they have been using them for various reasons, and one of the recipients and benefactors of this was Bigelow Aerospace. And let's find out a little bit more about Bigelow Aerospace. This is Robert Bigelow, and he is the founder, president, and program director of Bigelow Aerospace. And his face may be familiar to you because he's been someone that's been in the media several times. They're an American space technology startup. Bigelow Aerospace was founded by Robert Bigelow in 1998, and they're based in Las Vegas, Nevada. Bigelow himself invested $250 million in the company, and he was prepared to fund to a $500 million level in 2015 in order to develop what he was developing. They make modular space habitats, and they build stuff for space agencies. Unfortunately, in March of 2020, they laid off all of their employees due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and they expect to hire them back. So that tells you something about Bigelow Aerospace. This is Robert Bigelow in an interview that was done on 60 Minutes, and we're going to look at the conversation in this interview on 60 Minutes that he's going to give. And when you see his reaction or result, now you understand why he reacted the way he did. So the interviewer from 60 Minutes says, "Do you believe in aliens?" And his response is, "I'm absolutely convinced," and that's all there is to it. So then she says, "Do you also believe that UFOs have come to Earth?" And his response is, "There has been and is an existing presence, an ET presence." So then she says, "Well, you don't care that some people will say that, 'Did you hear that guy? He sounds like he's crazy.'" And Bigelow's response is, "I don't care." And then she says, "Well, why not?" He says, "It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to change reality, what I know." She says, "Do you imagine in our space travels, we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?" And he says, "You don't have to go anywhere." and then, and then she says, "You can find it here." And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Where exactly?" And then he says, "It's just like right under people's noses." Now, why does he say it's right underneath his nose? Because he's got UAP material recovered from these craft, and he's taking those technologies from stuff that he was given. So that's what he's referring to. So Mr. Bigelow is simply telling you the truth. And of course, when people make these sort of statements, even though he's the CEO of a fairly large aerospace technology company, people just thought, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a little bit on the crazy side. But of course, while he's saying this, they're back to re-engineering materials that they've gotten from spacecraft from off-world. So obviously, he's just telling you the truth. I just found there's a considerable irony in all of this. Okay, I'm going to do this very, very quickly. We're almost at the end of our presentation for this evening, and then we can do questions. These are some of the things that are in this document that was Anthony Bragaglia received. I'm just going to go over them very, very quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This is a copy of the actual report from the Defense Intelligence Agency that was sent to Anthony. This one's dated December 14th, 2009, and it's called Metallic Glass. And this is a picture from this document that he received that shows the difference between normal glass, which is on the left, which is a crystalline structure, and amorphous glass, which is not a crystalline structure, where all the bits of glass are put together in a non-lattice sort of format, and that's the difference between the two. Now, this diagram, we don't have to go into a lot of details about the diagram. It's worth noting that the metallic glasses, as far as their strength and toughness, are up in the range of where you would see metals. And here's the metallic glasses are here, and you see metals like titanium and aluminum and others. They're up in this category. There is a well-known material that has been discussed by other ufologists. It's called transparent aluminum. It's probably this this type of glass, this metallic glass, and the transparent aluminum has all the properties of aluminum and the strength characteristics and whatever, but it's obviously transparent so that you could use it for windows, let's say on a spacecraft. So this would be one example of the information he got of something that was recovered from a UAP craft and given to Bigelow Aerospace. Another one's called metallic spintronics, and we'll just briefly describe that. It's a new branch of physics where they analyze spinning electronic charges, which cause different characteristics for things that you would do in electronics. So that's another thing that was recovered. And this is one of the more interesting things that's described is called biomaterials. And one of these things is called nitinol or nitinol, depending on how you would pronounce it. It's a class of materials called shape memory alloys, SMAs. SMAs are mixtures of metals that after being stress treated can be deformed significantly, but then triggered to return to their original shape. Now, everyone who's familiar with the spacecraft that were recovered from Roswell in the late 1940s are aware of the story where people who went out to the crash sites of these vehicles said that there was some stuff that looked like tinfoil, and they took samples of it home with them. And what they did is when they folded it, it would fold up in a nice, neat little sort of squares. When they released it, it would immediately go back into its original shape as if there were no creases. So apparently nitinol or nitinol is one of these materials that was reverse engineered from the craft that was recovered from Roswell. So now the government is showing you, yes, we did give this, yes, we did take that technology, and it's now part of various companies like, in this case, Bigelow Aerospace. So let's end this presentation with a question for you. Do you think Bigelow Aerospace is the only company that has received UAP spacecraft technologies? So that's something for you to think of tonight after you go home or when you go to bed. Do you think Bigelow Aerospace is the only company? I think the answer is probably no, but it's obvious that this process has been going on for quite a long time.